Hi, everybody. I'm Matt Berry. I'm the Chief Technology Officer and co-founder of Digitalsmiths. Want to thank Cisco for allowing us to be here. We've been a portfolio company now. I think we were just talking for almost 4 years, and we're really excited. This is a really neat event. I think it's a neat opportunity to bring awareness around the different portfolio companies and what we're doing, and learn more about what some of the other companies in the space are doing. So who is Digitalsmiths? Digitalsmiths is a video discovery platform. We're providing most of the back-end solutions for service provider market, connected device, online properties, for doing search and recommendations. We look at this problem, it's very interesting. As Gautam mentioned, it really is a big data problem. When you look at the amount of content that consumers are bombarded with and what they can face, like me, I look at the television and say, well, there's 150 channels, but I can't find anything that's on tonight. So I spend most of my time really trying to figure out what I want to watch. And when you look at 150 channels multiplied out times maybe 4 hours, that's a lot of content. And we look at what some companies in the space like Netflix or Apple is doing with VOD, and although it's solving some of the VOD problems, it's not really addressing linear. And when you look at linear, in about a 30-day period, we see about 20,000 assets being aired, unique assets. And that kind of multiplies out to several 100,000 assets over a 12-month period. Typical VOD inventory, you're looking at about 80,000 assets. So finding VOD is a much different problem than linear. But when you look at how consumers are interacting with content, they're doing it in a variety of ways. One is, for VOD, they'll rate content. You'll see that often. They'll use those ratings to build behavior profiles to recommend content to consumers. But consumers typically don't rate linear content, right? They'll watch it, they'll consume it. Sporting events is a great example. Sporting and news. Once the event's over, everybody kind of forgets about it and moves on. So how do you build behavior profiles or recommend content where there's no prior notion of that content itself? Well, today, you're forced to look at a grid, right? You look at the content, and what I often say is you kind of get tunnel vision, right? You don't really connect to the content, you're connecting to words, and more often than not, you're connecting to networks. But that's putting networks in this precarious situation where they're creating brand awareness around that network. And so when you associate that network, you're associating it with that content type. So I use the example like the Lifetime channel. So the Lifetime channel plays a lot of the similar content, but now Lifetime channel is producing a lot of new content that's very different than the traditional content that they've produced. And so as a consumer, you would never know that looking at the guide product. All you see are text and words. So we think there's a huge opportunity around really connecting consumers to content in new ways. And this is through search and recommendations. We look at recommendations as really kind of a broad level description. There's recommendations based on how they rated content. There's recommendations based on how they viewed content or consumed content. There's social-based recommendations, things that are coming through the different social networks. So we're harnessing all that data, we're bringing in and aggregating that data, and we're correlating that data with content metadata that we work with the studios on. And then based on all this data, we can create these behavior profiles and predict how people will behave. And just to give you an idea, if you can imagine 12 million subscribers in a typical service provider market across 30 days, every time they hit that channel changer, every time they hit that button, whether or not they fell asleep on the couch or on their phone, the TV is tuned to that channel. So you're having massive amounts of data coming in. It's very, very noisy. So you're having to figure out how do we kind of extract good signal from all this noise and make valid recommendations. And these are the things that we're doing. So we're doing this through a number of methods. We do a search, recommendation, but we're personalizing that. What I mean by personalizing is we take this data in, we correlate those search patterns or search behaviors with how they've consumed content, and then we give better responses that are more personalized to that person. So just like with Google, if you do a search back home and I do a search, we may get different results, and that different result set is based on a number of factors. One, personalization. But we're also correlating that with behavior and mood. So we can make recommendations based on the kind of mood you're in. And we can determine the kind of person you are based on all this content and extract the mood that you've watched before. So I can say, well, you know, Matt's somebody that really likes movies that are dark comedies from the 80s. And it's this kind of information that's really extracting information out and making valid recommendations to the consumer. So here's an example. We have a demo back at our booth. I'd love to show it to you. But as you log into the system, you select you as a user, but you can have multiple profiles. So we're not limiting to just mom or just dad. We can say, well, recommend content to mom and dad, because maybe mom and dad and daughter are actually consuming content together. So this is a screenshot. It really kind of shows what we're doing in the system. We give the ability to make these recommendations through the TV and VOD, but you can also see over there we're giving social buzz. And that buzz is a real-time measurement on how we're recommending content. So another good example for sports is you may not have known that a game just went into overtime. But through social buzz, we can trigger those events, make that recommendation to you, and all of a sudden you can tune into the channel that's important to you. We can also turn everything on its head. Your traditional guide product strips away this notion of network. Quite honestly, I don't really care what network something is on. I just want to get to my content quicker. And so we do that, right? We sort your linear lineup rather by network, but we sort it by recommended value. So we can give you back what you want to watch much quicker. So what does this all mean? Well, through a number of relationships and measurements, we've seen a number of uplift in VOD subscription services, the amount of time that consumers are spending with content. But we also cross-validate what we're doing with how they're behaving to try to measure our own system, because we want to know, like, how accurate did we make this recommendation? And through a number of studies that we did with some of the service providers, we found that we're able to achieve a 95% score on how we predicted behavior, on how they actually consume content. And that was through how they DVR'd stuff, how they did a live tune event, channel change, things like that. So a little bit of background on who we are. We're headquartered in the Research Triangle Park area in North Carolina, right down the road from the Cisco campus there. We have about 45 people within the Research Triangle Park. We have an office in LA, our sales and account management. We have 40 patents, 20 of which have been issued. And of course, our strategic investors today are Cisco, but also Technicolor.